All right. I did not prepare for this stream. I'm not gonna lie. This is gonna be another Raw stream, but it's my birthday, so I don't care. I'm gonna do what I want. We'll talk about Blair Mountain, do another episode of Packwatch, and also talk about why the cops suck. Again. It is my birthday. I will do what I want. I will do as I please. Okay, hang on. I'm pulling up links and stuff. I did play jazz on my birthday. I did play some jazz. I played quite a bit of jazz, actually. It's funny that Clickford Bateson made his birthday this day as well. I'm pulling up. Oh my goodness, I didn't mute the tab. No, it's not Clickford's B Day. Who the heck is Clickford Bateson? I am. Stream elements. Hey, thank you, Xavier. I appreciate you. Hey, Marble Caps Lock, thank you for the birthday wish. I appreciate you. I want to talk about Blair Mountain. We're going to talk about Blair Mountain because it's the 100th anniversary of Blair Mountain. It's not just my birthday. I don't know if anyone was in here when I said that. Interesting. I'm just looking at stuff about and on Blair Mountain now, but I'm trying to find like maybe we'll watch something on YouTube about it. Let's see what's up. That looks interesting. We'll check that out. All right, so you guys, okay. So it's my birthday. Damn. Sorry, I was doom scrolling. So my birthday, I'm 32, and yeah, it's a wild age to be. Um, like I was saying, Blair Mountain happened 100 years ago. Um, thank you, Jenna. I appreciate you. Actually, I'll post on Instagram that I'm live. Maybe people on Instagram will see that I'm live and come through. Hey, Fade Runner, thanks for the host. Okay, all right. Let me get my Packwatch links ready because I want to do Packwatch first, and then we can talk about Blair Mountain. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do Blair Mountain first, and then we can do Packwatch. So let's start simple. Let's go to. Hang on. Let me see if. Nothing. Okay, so all right, so here we go. So ready? We're gonna talk about Blair Mountain, okay? If you, yes, Packwatch, but not right now though. We're gonna talk about Blair Mountain. I keep saying Blair Mountain. I don't have anything left to drink. Hold on. I'm not gonna get up. I want to get something to drink. I'm gonna do a quick spiel first though. When I put this video on, that's when I'll get up to go get a drink. I'll be like an elementary school teacher when I want to distract you all for like a few minutes so I can just like grade papers or something. I'll just put this video on. You guys will pay attention to it, and then I'll slide off and grab a drink. But also, I might not do that because I haven't seen this video yet. Anyway, here's a Wikipedia article on Blair Mountain. G Fuel time? No G Fuel. No G Fuel, not at the moment. Actually, you know what I want to do, kind of, that I have not done. Let's do this. There we go. That seems nice. And then I can also make chat visible over here. How about that? Wild. Okay. All right. Actually, that's kind of. Let me. Just because I'm really. Sorry, y'all. Let's do that. Okay, cool. All right. And. Let's do this. It's my birthday. Don't. I'll do whatever I want. I'll fix this while I'm live. Okay, there we go. All right. So we got a nice, a very nice border kind of there. I'll put my logo down here later. Yeah, I will do that. Anyway, okay, so Battle of Blair Mountain. Let's read this. The Battle of Blair Mountain was the largest labor uprising in the United States history. Thank you for the host, Marble Caps Lock. Hey, what's happening, Ahmad? Thank you. Thank you for the birthday wish. I'm talking about Blair Mountain, right? I'm just like doing surface level stuff right now, so I'm just like basically like reading the Wikipedia article on this. Obviously, I can't get like too deep because my knowledge of this whole thing in general is pretty shallow, honestly, and I don't really have any books on it specifically or anything like that to like, spit game at you from. But it's the 100th year anniversary of Blair Mountain, and this was some shit that I hope it's a piece. It's history. I wish they would have taught me because I didn't learn about this in elementary school or middle school or high school. Obviously, having gone to a wide variety of schools throughout my life, but So anyway, thanks for the like, Joe. And thank you for the birthday wish. This is your first time hearing of it, Big Richard Lizardman? No way. Battle of Blair Mountain, this is your first time hearing of it? For real? I mean, I don't want you to feel weird or anything, because I have only heard of this fairly recently myself, but you've never heard of it either, Jenna. Wow. For real, for real. Wow. So, essentially, um, Marble Caps Lock same for you. Is your first time too, Joe? Wow. Okay. Wow. Have I got a treat for you guys? This is okay. So we're gonna call this segment of the stream history. I wish they taught me, because I am not alone in having, first of all, never heard of this before. I've heard of it a few years ago, but I don't know that much about it. Like I already said, so it's going to be interesting me explaining this to you, but it's kind of cool because that means I can explain the baby concepts that I know and remember of it to you guys in a form that you might be able to understand. Basically, the police killed a lot of people, or what would resemble the police. The workers were like, "Yo, we're working way too fucking hard. We're not trying to work like this." And the bosses were like, "Excuse me, police, can you fix the situation, please?" And the police were like, "Aye, aye, Captain." That's basically how it goes. You know what I mean? Um, this is part of the reason, and I'm guessing not many people know about this, but it's also part of the reason why I'm like super like anti-police, because this is just like one of the litany of events throughout history, like American history, United States history, whether we're talking about like the civil rights movement. You were talking about most recently with the George Floyd situation. Go back a couple of decades, or one decade, really, if you want to talk about like Occupy. You know what I mean? Whether we're talking about any mass movement, like grassroots progressive like movement in America, the police are always on the opposite and like exponentially more antagonistic side. Like it's always the police being sent in to quiet that shit down so that everybody can go the fuck back to work, right? Because that's the most important thing. So let's read this a bit here. The Battle of Blair Mountain was the largest labor uprising in United States history and the largest armed uprising since the American Civil War. And you know who actually might be perfect for this? That now that I've read that sentence and stopped twice, let me go look up Alki and see if Alki has anything on this. Cornish Party. No, bummer. I'm sure Alki will get to it. Anyway, I do have video to pull up for it. Oh, no, I just looked at the video and Okay, never mind. Okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Let me stop boring you guys. Thank you, By the Bell Pepper. I appreciate the birthday wish. I'm talking about Blair Mountain. So, let me read this again and not stop this time. The Battle of Blair Mountain was the largest labor uprising in United States history and the largest armed uprising since the American Civil War. Right? So, if you think of anything in American history, whether it's like January 6th or like 9/11, in terms of, well, I guess 9/11 because it wasn't from within the country, but like January 6th would be like in most recent memory something that you could actually visualize that, but like way more serious and not shitty people in terms of like the gravity of the event. It was the second largest uprising other than the American Civil War, armed uprising. The conflict occurred in Logan County, West Virginia, as part of the Coal Wars, a series of early 20th century labor disputes in Appalachia. Up to 100 people were killed and many more were arrested. The United Mine Workers saw major declines in membership, but the long-term publicity led to some improvements in working conditions. For 5 days from late August to early September 1921, some 10,000 armed coal miners confronted 3,000 lawmen and strikebreakers, called Logan Defenders, who were backed by coal mine operators during the miners' attempt to unionize the southwestern West Virginia coal fields when tensions rose between workers and mine management. The battle ended after approximately 1 million rounds were fired, and the United States Army, represented by the West Virginia Army National Guard, led by McDowell County native William Eubanks, intervened by presidential order. So, yeah, it seems like this would have been important to tell you about, along with, like, you know, the invention of the cotton gin and that kind of shit in history class in elementary school and middle school and so on, but they kind of forgot to tell you about this part. So I'm just going to read all of this, and if you need me to explain anything, feel free to chime in and chat, and I'm probably also going to do my own like commentary and thinking out loud about this. So since the founding of the, let's look into the Coal Wars, because that's pretty important too. The Coal Wars were a series of armed labor conflicts in the United States roughly between 1890 and 1930. Although they occurred mainly in the East, particularly in Appalachia, there was a significant amount of violence in Colorado after the turn of the century. The Coal Wars were the result of economic exploitation of workers during a period of social transformation in the coal fields. Beginning in 1870 through 1880, coal operators had established the company town system. Let's look at that really quick, just so. A company town is a place where practically all stores and housing are owned by the one company that is also the main employer. Company towns are often planned with a suite of amenities such as stores, houses of worship, schools, markets, and recreation facilities. They are usually bigger than a model village, a model in the sense of an ideal to be emulated. Does any of this shit sound... Thank you for the dono. I appreciate you, DC Metal Chris. Does any of this shit sound truly apocalyptic to any of you guys? Like, just, like, truly scary, like, dystopian as fuck? Like, imagine... So, if you could imagine for a second, right? If McDonald's, like... decided they were going to have a company town, right? This McDonald's is going to be where all of the people in this town work, right? Because that's like the most important thing about a town is the people, and they all need to have jobs. So the one source of labor, like in terms, not source of actual labor, but like people being paid for their labor, it's going to be this McDonald's restaurant in the middle of this town. And so by extension, McDonald's is going to own everything in the town because they're the ones giving money to the people that work at the McDonald's. So like there will be schools and pharmacies and movie theaters, parks, basketball courts, and apparently even churches that this McDonald's owns. And like literally they own the land that these things are on. They own the bricks and the mortar that the buildings are made out of. Like McDonald's has paid money to have all of this shit constructed specifically for these people to live there, to work at their McDonald's. And like I can't, like, if you don't understand how fucking scary that type of thing would be without me explaining it to you, I worry, I truly do. But just like as, interject my personal thoughts on it. This shit is fucking like extremely scary to me. But if I replace the word McDonald's in that scenario with the word Amazon, people seem cool with it, and that's also extremely fucking scary to me too. Because it's essentially what we're headed towards. Like we're kind of rolling back the clock in this country to a lot of these really fucking exploitative systems and things that benefited, the ruling class, but were kind of really fucking abusive and caused the early deaths of a lot of fucking workers. This gig economy shit, you know what I mean, where you're working like 60-70 hours a week with no health insurance and so on and so forth. Like it's kind of fucked. And then you have Amazon that's already has, like, there's this one site I think I was seeing that's supposed to have like homeless shelters or something. It's like everybody it was ran in the news cycle as super altruistic, right? It's this homeless shelter where if you're homeless, right, or you're houseless rather, you can live there and like get clean, all so on and so forth. But there's also like an Amazon warehouse nearby, and there's job opportunities for you to work at this Amazon warehouse. And it's like, it was presented as like, oh, look, this is a very innovative and very uh like, you know what I mean? Anthrophile, or what's the word? Philanthropic fucking solution to homelessness in America. But it's like, it makes me want to pull my fucking hair out because nobody else seems like really as bothered by it like I am. You know what I mean? The company also runs the stores, so they control wages and also how much rent costs and how much everything costs. Yes, exactly. That's the main point, is like, so this town owns everything, so they can literally pay you just enough to like have exactly or less than what you would want to have in life. So like they're setting the rent for the houses in the area, but they're also setting the pay that you're going to get from the job. So they can like increase rent on you to like put you into debt, because debt is even more money. So it's like they could just put you and your family in debt forever. Kind of like, I don't know. I think that might have been done before in America. There might have been a class of people that was done to after slavery was quote unquote abolished. But anyway, yeah. So company towns, that's what a company town is. So essentially, imagine a coal mining company owns the company town. This coal mine provides all the jobs to everyone in the area, but they also own all the homes. So they set the prices of all the rent and all the buying costs to own property, which you probably were not doing. But, and they set the prices for food and necessities and so on and so forth. Like this coal mine that they were working for literally owned and set the prices for everything and around their entire lives in this coal town. You weren't aware of this by the bell pepper? Oh yeah. They intentionally set prices to keep you in debt so you can't afford to quit? Yeah, absolutely. Cats can't see it for some reason. Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you, Big Richie Lizzie. Hold on, let me pull up this link, because this is the stuff I was talking about here. Jeff Bezos gives Washington governor a tour of homeless shelter attached to Amazon HQ. Inslee called the shelter inspiring and encouraging and said that it's an important piece to addressing our homeless crisis. Now, imagine that and picture that now against the backdrop of the eviction crisis that we're going to be facing, that Democrats just keep kicking the can down the road for. There's thousands, if not millions, of people in this country that are going to be fucking evicted, right? They've just spent an entire fucking like 12 months unable to work or unable to find work in some cases, and there is no rent. Like, you still have to pay rent for all that time. It's just that you can't be evicted right now. There's an evictions moratorium, but there's lots of people who have just been fucked this entire time. And when you put that also against the fact that there's so there was like this massive transition of wealth from the lower class to the upper class. All that trillions of dollars worth of money somehow floated all the way up to the top. And they've been buying property. So property value has been getting, like, buying a house is insane, right? So they would love nothing more. Companies like Amazon, companies like, these larger companies, Walmart and Sam's Club, like like Target, whoever, they would love nothing more than to have a company town or something akin to a company town, because that's like the true fucking that is anarcho-capitalism right there. That is libertarianism. Just like, you will be living in a company town. They just want company towns, and they think that they'll be the CEO of the company. That's why they're down for that shit, because they're fucking stupid. Sorry I had to take that turn. I know I'm kind of rambling, but yeah. So anyway, let me get back to what I was talking about with Blair Mountain, because it's important. I hope you guys are following. You can tell me if I'm going off in the weeds. You've been wrapped up in all the other media hoopla? Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of shit. Like, the news is designed, it's infotainment. Like, it's fucking clickbait. It's going to catch your attention, even if you don't want to pay attention to it, like headlines and shit you'll randomly see or whatever, or other people around you will be talking about shit, or memes will come out about certain shit that you might see. And it's at that point you gotta understand. But let me continue talking about the Coal Wars, and then we can get into Blair Mountain, because this shit gets saucy. Make no mistake, this shit gets absolutely spicy. So let me just read it from the beginning again. The coal wars were the result of economic exploitation of workers during a period of social transformation in the coal fields. Beginning in 1870 through 1880, coal operators had established the company town system. Coal operators paid private detectives as well as public law enforcement agents to ensure that union organizers were kept out of the region. So imagine you work at this coal mine. The coal mine owns everything in a town. It's a coal mine company town. It's a coal town. And on top of that, this coal company is literally paying the police and other like private organizations, like private security companies, to like go to people's houses and intimidate them, send them threatening letters in the mail, spy on them, listen to their conversations, and sometimes even kill them, right? Because they're that averse to having people come in and unionize the workers in the town, right? They don't want a union because that means they can't exploit. You have collective bargaining when you're part of a union at that point, and you can't be exploited as much as you would be if you were just considered an individual that's just completely helpless to their circumstance, right? As part of a union, you say, hey, coal owners of said coal mine company, if you marched your happy ass into this mine tomorrow after all of us quit, you would be fucked. There would be no coal for you. So you should probably listen to what we say and not treat us like raw materials, like equal to the things that you're having us dig out of the earth, right? That's what happens when you're a part of a union. But the owners of this coal company didn't want that. They wanted to continue to use people like raw materials, pay them starvation wages, subject them to extremely hazardous conditions, right? To pay them as little as possible. That's the point. That's the built-in contradiction of capitalism. You, as a worker, I'm assuming, you as a worker would like to work the least amount of hours for the most amount of pay, right? If you could work like 4 or 5, 6 hours a week and make $11 million just for that amount of work, you would probably do that, right? Meanwhile, your boss wants to pay you the least amount to have you work the most amount of time, right? So if your boss could literally have you come to work for free, fuck that. If your boss could have you pay them to come work for you, this is how fucking crazy Uber is, right? This is why Uber is fucking crazy, because you're literally paying Uber to work for them. But anyway, if your boss could have you pay them for you to come work for them, and take no time off, take no breaks, work all hours, live there, right? Until you eventually keel over and die, and the next poor worker has to scoop your sorry ass up off the work floor and throw you in a dumpster so they can continue to work this hard, right? They would do that. They would not tell you not to do that at all. They would actually encourage that, right? It's the built-in fucking contradiction. So in order to accomplish this objective, agents of the coal operators use intimidation, harassment, espionage, and even murder, like I was saying. Throughout the early 20th century, coal miners attempted to overthrow the system and engaged in a series of strikes, including the Paint Creek Cabin Creek strike of 1912 and the Battle of Evarts, which coal operators attempted to stop through violent means. Mining families lived under the terror of Baldwin Feltz detective agents who were professional strikebreakers under the hire of coal operators. During that dispute, agents drove a heavily armored train through a tent colony at night, opening fire on women, men, and children with a machine gun. They would repeat this type of tactic during the Ludlow Massacre in Colorado the next year, with even more disastrous results. So, basically, these miners would literally just be like, nah, we don't want to work. We're not coming to work. We don't want to do that. You're not paying us right, whatever. We have a support system set up so that we'll be good. We can not come to work and we'll be set for a little while. But the profits and so on and so forth that you will lose from us not coming to work and you not being able to continue business is going to destroy you. So they would, like this is saying, have detectives and professional strikebreakers come through and just straight up spray people up and like just terrorize people. By 1920, the United Mine Workers of America organized most of West Virginia and Colorado. The southern West Virginia coal fields, however, remained non-unionized bastions of coal operator power. In early 1920, UMW President John L. Lewis targeted Mingo County for organizing. Certain aspects of Mingo made it more attractive to Union leaders than neighboring Logan County, which was under the control of the vehemently anti-Union sheriff Don Chafin and his deputized army. So it's sheriffs, wild. Mingo's political structure was more independent, and some politicians were pro-union. Cabell Testerman, the mayor of the independent town of Matewan, was one supporter, or is it Madawan? Is it Madawan or Matewan? I think it's Madawan. I'm sorry. The mayor of the independent town of Madawan was one supporter of the union cause. He appointed 27-year-old Sid Hatfield as town police chief. As a teenager, Hatfield had worked in the coal mines and he was sympathetic to the miners' condition. Although he was not a relative of the infamous Hatfield and McCoy Hatfields, he used the connection to his advantage. These men provided union organizers an opportunity to gain a foothold, and the unionizing accelerated rapidly in the county. So some people might look at that and be like, see, the police helped. completely missing the point that the police were literally out here murdering people in opposition to this. Like that would somehow like that it's like a zero sum game. It's like, well, you take the good with the bad, and sometimes you help some workers gain their status as paid individuals who can actually function in society and not be exploited by oppressive and terrorizing companies. And sometimes you get paid by those companies to shoot innocent women and children to keep them from demanding their rights as workers. Those two things are the same. And, that means that the police are somehow good, because all the things that I want to believe about them are true, I guess. Anyway, in response to the organizing efforts, coal operators used every means to block the Union. One of their primary tactics of combating the Union was firing Union sympathizers, blacklisting them, and evicting them from their homes, which they could do because these are coal towns. They owned everything in the town, including the house you lived in. So, and this will happen anyway nowadays. If you get fired from your job and you don't find a new job and you don't have a lot of money saved, eventually you will get evicted, assuming that you are renting. If you own a home, you'll probably still get fucked if you can't pay a mortgage or whatever, or if you can't pay property tax, whatever. But the fact that the company also owned their house is just makes it that much more fucking ostentatious. You know what I mean? Their legal argument for evictions is best stated by S.B. Avis, a coal company lawyer. It is like a servant lives at your house. If the servant leaves your employment, if you discharge him, you ask him to get out of the servant's quarters. It is a question of master and servant. So right there in that quote, you can get a sense of how these company owners felt about the workers in their employ. You as a worker, you as a laborer are a servant, and the owner is the owner, the master, right? The UMW set up tent colonies for the homeless miner families, and soon a mass of idle and angry miners was concentrated in a small area along the Tug Fork River. Even with the coal operators' suppression, by early May, 3,000 out of 4,000 Mingo miners had joined the union. At the Stone Mountain Coal Company mine near Madawan, every single worker unionized and was subsequently fired and evicted. Man. The coal wars of the late 19th to early 20th century were a particularly important part of West Virginia's state history. The Paint Creek Cabin Creek Strike of 1912 involves numerous labor leaders, including Mary Harris Jones, also known as Mother Jones. The next major event of the mine wars in West Virginia was the Madawan Massacre on May 19, 1920. The massacre only exacerbated tensions between miners, their allies, and coal operators. In West Virginia, the mine wars would come to a head at the Battle of Blair Mountain in 1921. Thank you for the like. I can't read that. I'm sorry. This armed conflict pitched organized miners against detectives, policemen, and eventually the United States Army. So that also shows you how your government felt and feels about unionization. They sent the army in to strike break. And that should also give you an idea about the military, but that's probably TOS. So the result of the battle was a loss for the West Virginia miners, unfortunately, and the crushing of organized labor aspirations in the state. Miners would not be allowed to organize again until the 1930s. What's up, Kuma? So not only did these miners have to take up arms to demand that they be given fair wages, fair housing, not be exploited, not only these coal miners have to literally arm themselves and take up arms to not be exploited, to demand that they not be exploited anymore, not only did the coal companies who were exploiting these workers send in the police department and detectives and mercenaries and the United States Army to break these strikes, not only did the United States government do that to these miners, they fucking lost. The miners lost. The United States, the coal companies, they won. They won. The miners wouldn't be allowed to organize again until the 1930s. And this is with all of the, mercenaries and police shooting and killing innocent people in the tent cities that resulted as a consequence of these pro-union miners being evicted from their homes because they were fired and blacklisted from these coal mines and could not work, sell their labor. And these places where the massive source of funds for labor would be coal mines, right? So, yeah. Like I said, it's August 25th. It's the 100-year anniversary of Blair Mountain, which was the culmination of the events of the coal mine wars. So let's go back to talking about Blair Mountain now that we have a little bit of background and a little bit of understanding of the social climate that exists in this period of time, right? So this is Mingo County, West Virginia. So remember what I talked about before with these coal miners, right? These coal miners were working in a coal mine in Mingo County, which was the sole employer in this county, right? The major source of employee in this county. I'm sure there were other like artisan shops, like, that sort of thing. But like the place where the vast majority of people in this town, if you can imagine like a nuclear, like American town now in modern times, this coal town back then, the vast majority of people are almost like a GM plant, like how a GM plant would be the sole source of employee for most of the people in this town, in a town, like in a Rust Belt town or something, right? In this coal town in 1921, excuse me, these miners were living or working in this coal mine, being exploited, working in hazardous conditions, being paid low wages, right? And the company that they worked for that owned the mines also owned their homes, owned the stores that they would need to buy supplies from, food for their children, so on and so forth, owned their churches, right? The coal mines owned everything. And if there was ever any attempt to try to organize with your fellow coal miners, you would have to worry about people spying on you, snitching on you, and then the police might come and like firebomb your house or like shoot your children or something like that, right? So that's the social climate of what's happening right now. And there's already been big battles of miners who, if you are in any way actually involved or even accused of being involved in any type of organizing, short of the coal mine company just paying the police or mercenaries to come assassinate you, you will be fired from that mine. They will tell all the other mines in the area, and you will not be able to find work at another coal mine. And subsequently, they will evict you, right? You will be kicked out of your house because the coal mine that fired you also owns your house. And they know that you don't have a job, and you're not going to have a job. So they'll just kick you out because you're not going to be able to pay to live there. And a representative from one of the mines put it best in what I just read. When the servant says that he no longer wants to serve you, then you ask him to leave the servant's quarters, right? So that's all you are to this company, is just a servant to serve them, to bring them their coal, and them to give you a pittance to just keep you barely alive and barely satisfied, right? So, since the founding of the United Mine Workers Union in 1890, coal mines in Mingo County, West Virginia, and its surrounding hired only non-union workers. And strictly enforced employment contracts that included union membership as grounds for immediate termination, right? So all the coal mines in Mingo County and the surrounding area, they only hired non-union workers, and the contract that you would have to sign to work with them, right? Like you would have to sign a contract for Uber or something like that. The contract that you have to sign with them includes in it that if you even attempt to unionize, that is grounds for immediate termination, right? And that also means eviction. As miners in the area lived almost exclusively in company towns, termination also meant eviction. Wow, it's funny that was the very next sentence. In 1920, the UMW's new president, John L. Lewis, sought to finally end the 3-decade resistance to unionization in the area. He was under increased pressure to do so from both miners elsewhere participating in the United Mine Workers Coal Strike of 1919 and from affected mine operators who were now being undercut by non-union mines in West Virginia. The unionization push included efforts from Mother Jones, who gave fiery speeches at the age of 83, and Frank Keeney, president of the local union district. Over 3,000 Mingo County miners joined the union and were summarily fired. The coal companies then hired agents of the Baldwin Feltz Detective Agency to evict the families of their former employees. On May 19, 1920, a dozen Baldwin Feltz detectives, including Lee Feltz, arrived in Madawan and connected with Lee's brother, Albert Feltz. Albert and Lee were the brothers of Thomas Feltz, the co-owner and director of the private detective agency. Albert had already been in the area and had tried to bribe Mayor Cabell Testerman with $500 to place machine guns on roofs in the town. Testerman refused. That afternoon, Albert and Lee, along with 11 other men, set out to the Stone Mountain Coal Company property. The first family they evicted was a woman and her children. The woman's husband was not home at the time. They forced them out at gunpoint and threw their belongings in the road under a light but steady rain. The miners who saw it were furious and sent word to town. Thank you for the share, Maya. So if you didn't understand what was happening, thank you, Siberia, for the like as well. So basically, a bunch of these private detectives tried to bribe the mayor $500 to put machine guns on the roofs in town so that they could just mow down people if they have to in the streets while they're doing these evictions. And the mayor didn't. So imagine if the mayor said yes. Imagine if the mayor was like, fuck it, a bag's a bag. Took the $500 and let them set these machine guns up on the roofs in the town to just absolutely fucking shred these people while they're evicting them, right? Unbelievable. But this is American history. This is a history you wish they taught you, right? History I wish they taught me. As the agents walked to the train station to leave town, Police Chief Sid Hatfield and a group of deputized miners confronted them and told them they were under arrest. Albert Feltz replied that in fact he had a warrant for Hatfield's arrest. Testerman was alerted and he ran out into the street after a miner shouted that Sid had been arrested. Hatfield backed into the store and Testerman asked to see the warrant. After reviewing it, Mayor Testerman exclaimed, "This is a bogus warrant." With these words, a gunfight erupted and Chief Hatfield shot the agent Albert Feltz. Testerman and Albert and Lee Feltz were among the 10 men killed, 3 from the town and 7 from the agency. This gunfight became known as the Madawan Massacre, and its symbolic significance was enormous for the miners. The seemingly invincible detective agency Baldwin Feltz had been beaten. Chief Sid Hatfield became an immediate legend and a hero to the Union miners and a symbol of hope that the oppression of coal operators and their hired guns could be overthrown. Throughout the summer and into the fall of 1920, The Union gained strength in Mingo County, as did the resistance of the coal operators. Sporadic shootouts occurred up and down the Tug River. In late June, state police under the command of Captain Brockus raided the Lick Creek tent colony near Williamson. Miners were said to have fired on Brockus and Martin's men from the colony, and in response, the state police shot and arrested miners, ripped the canvas tents to shreds, and scattered the mining family's belongings. Both sides were bolstering their arms, and Sid Hatfield continued to fuel the resistance, specifically by converting Testament's jewelry store into a gun shop. Interesting. So the police were arresting people in these tent cities. So it's not enough that you've been fired from the coal mine job that was exploitative, that you were demanding your rights for, right? You've been fired from that job. You will never work at any coal mine ever again, in any other mine. And you've also been evicted. So you're living in a canvas tent with a bunch of other fired and evicted pro-union miners. And the police come and just start shooting people and arresting people and shredding people's tents, throwing their shit, like throwing their belongings, trashing their belongings. Like, I mean, of course you would want to, you know what I mean? On January 26, 1921, the trial of Hatfield for killing Albert Feltz began. It was in the national spotlight and brought much attention to the miners' cause. Hatfield's stature and mythical status grew as the trial proceeded. He posed and talked to reporters, fanning the flames of his own legend. All men were acquitted in the end, but overall the Union was facing significant setbacks. 80% of mines had reopened 80% of mines have reopened with imported replacements and ex-strikers who signed yellow dog contracts to return to work. So let's see what yellow dog means. A yellow dog contract, or a yellow dog clause of a contract, or an ironclad oath, is an agreement between an employer and an employee in which the employee agrees as a condition of employment not to be a member of a labor union. In the United States, such contracts were, until the 1930s, widely used by employers to prevent the formation of unions, most often by permitting employers to take legal action against union organizers. In 1932, yellow dog contracts were outlawed in the United States under the Norris-LaGuardia Act. The term yellow dog clause can also have a different meaning. Non-compete clauses within or appended to a non-disclosure agreement to prevent an employee from working for other employers in the same industry. In mid-May 1921, Union miners launched a full-scale assault on non-Union mines. In a short time, the conflict had consumed the entire Tug River Valley. This 3 days battle was finally ended by a flag of truce and the implementation of martial law. From the beginning, the miners perceived the enforcement of martial law as one-sided. Hundreds of miners were arrested. The smallest of infractions could mean imprisonment, while those on the side of law and order were seen as immune. The miners responded with guerrilla tactics and sabotage. So, once again, must I remind everyone that the police are their own thing. The police are their own gang. They're their own thing, like completely separate from the rest of society, right? They enforce the law. Therefore, they are above the law, right? In the midst of this tense situation, Hatfield traveled to McDowell County on August 1st, 1921 to stand trial on charges of dynamiting a coal tipple. Along with him traveled a good friend, Ed Chambers, and their wives. As they walked up the courthouse stairs, unarmed and flanked by their wives, a group of Baldwin Feltz agents standing at the top of the stairs opened fire. Hatfield was killed instantly. Chambers was bullet-riddled and rolled to the bottom of the stairs. Despite Sally Chambers' protests, one of the agents ran down the stairs and shot Chambers once more, point blank, in the back of the head. Hatfield's and Chambers' bodies were returned to Madawan, and word of the slaying spread through the mountains. The miners, angry that Hatfield had been murdered and knowing the assassins would escape punishment, began to take up arms and pour out of their mountain settlements. Miners along the Little Coal River were among the first to organize and began actions such as patrolling and guarding the area. Sheriff Don Chaffin sent Logan County troopers to the Little Coal River area, where armed miners captured the troopers, disarmed them, and sent them fleeing. On August 7, 1921, the leaders of the United Mine Workers, District 17, which encompasses much of southern West Virginia, called a rally at the state capitol in Charleston. These leaders were Frank Keeney and Fred Mooney, who were veterans of previous mine conflicts in the region. Both were local, well-read, and articulate. Keeney and Mooney met with Governor Ephraim Morgan and presented him with a petition of the miners' demands. When Morgan summarily rejected the demands, the miners became more restless and began to talk of a march on Mingo to free the confined miners, end martial law, and organize the county. But Blair Mountain, Logan County, and Sheriff Chaffin stood directly in the way. One of your favorite filmmakers made a movie related to this? Cool. I have to check that out. At a rally on August 7th, Mary Harris, Mother Jones, called on the miners not to march into Logan and Mingo counties and set up the Union by force. Accused by some of losing her nerve, she feared a bloodbath in a battle between lightly armed Union forces and the more heavily armed Logan County deputies. So, the police had more guns and bigger guns. And if you know anything about the police, you know that the police like to use their guns. Yet, feeling Morgan had lied to them again, armed men began gathering at Lenz Creek Mountain near Marmot in Kanawha County on August 20th. 4 days later, an estimated 13,000 had gathered and began marching towards Logan County. Impatient to get to the fighting, miners near St. Albans in Kanawha County commandeered a Chesapeake and Ohio freight train, renamed by the miners the Blue Steel Special, to meet up with the advanced column of marchers at Danville in Boone County on their way to Bloody Mingo. During this time, Keeney and Mooney fled to Ohio, while the fiery Bill Blizzard assumed quasi-leadership of the miners. Meanwhile, the anti-Union Sheriff Chaffin had begun to set up defenses on Blair Mountain. He was supported financially by the Logan County Coal Operators Association, creating the nation's largest private armed force of nearly 2,000. So they created the biggest private army at the time, just to prevent these miners from freeing the arrested miners whose crime was trying to unionize. The first skirmishes occurred on the morning of August 25th. The bulk of the miners were still 15 miles away. The following day, President Warren Harding threatened to send in federal troops and Army Martin MB-1 bombers. After a long meeting in Madison, the seat of Boone County, the miners were convinced to return home, but the struggle was far from over. After spending days assembling his private army, Chaffin would not be denied his battle to end Union attempts at organizing Logan County coal mines. So, the miners had already given up and deciding to go home, but the police were like, we have all these guns, we kind of want to use them, we kind of just want to shoot people. So within hours of the Madison decision, rumors abounded that Chaffin's men had shot Union sympathizers in the town of Sharples, just north of Blair Mountain, and that families had been caught in crossfire during the skirmishes. Infuriated, the miners turned back toward Blair Mountain, many traveling in other stolen and commandeered trains. By August 29th, battle was fully joined. Chaffin's men, though outnumbered, had the advantage of higher positions and better weaponry. Private planes were hired to drop homemade bombs on the miners. A combination of poison gas and explosive bombs left over from World War I were dropped in several locations near the towns of Jeffrey, Sharples, and Blair. At least one did not explode and was recovered by the miners. It was used months later to great effect as evidence for the defense during treason and murder trials. On orders from General Billy Mitchell, Army bombers from Maryland were also used for aerial surveillance. Imagine that. Spy planes from Maryland. Wild. If you're from Baltimore, you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. One Martin bomber crashed on its return flight, killing the 3 crew members. On August 30th, Morgan appointed Colonel William Eubanks of the West Virginia National Guard to command the government and volunteer forces confronting the miners. Sporadic gun battles continued for a week, with the miners at one time nearly breaking through to the town of Logan and their target destinations, the non-unionized counties to the south, Logan and Mingo. Up to 30 deaths were reported by Chafin's side and 50 to 100 on the Union miners' side, with hundreds more injured or wounded. Chafin's forces consisted of 90 men from Bluefield, West Virginia, 40 from Huntington, West Virginia, and about 120 from the West Virginia State Police. 3 of Chafin's forces, 2 volunteers and a deputy sheriff, were killed, and 1 miner was fatally wounded. Federal troops arrived by September 2nd. The miners, many of whom were veterans themselves, were unwilling to fire on U.S. troops. Bill Blizzard passed the word for the miners to start heading home the following day. Miners feeling jail and confiscation of their guns found clever ways to hide rifles and handguns in the woods before leaving Logan County. Some were found later, along with many spent and live cartridges, which helped archaeologists reconstruct the course of the fighting. Thank you, Julian. I appreciate you. After the battle, 985 miners were indicted for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, and treason against the state of West Virginia. Though some were acquitted by sympathetic juries, others were imprisoned for years. The last was paroled in 1925. At Blizzard's trial, the unexploded bomb was used as evidence of the government and company's brutality, and he was acquitted. Hey, thank you, Roxy. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate you. So just so everyone knows, the police, the army, the National Guard, the sheriffs, private detective companies, all these people were just straight up massacring these miners who had to take up arms to defend themselves because they had committed the crimes of demanding higher wages and, less hours from these exploitative coal mining companies. The coal mining companies that also own their homes and had gobs of money to pay the police and army and National Guard and so on to do these things to them, right? And none of the police or these private detectives or, obviously not the army or the National Guard, none of them saw any consequences for this. As I stated before, and as we read in this, there was people straight gunned down in the streets. Sid Hatfield was just sprayed. Sid Hatfield and his friend Bill Chambers were just fucking sprayed, like hosed down, unarmed, on their way to court, right? Walked up and double tapped that man Chambers, right? And none of them saw any consequences for that kind of stuff. But these people this started from them, of them literally just asking for their rights as workers. They were charged with murder, treason, accessory to murder, right? Conspiracy. Thank you for the share and the like. In the short term, the battle was an overwhelming victory for coal industry owners and management. UMW membership plummeted from more than 50,000 miners to approximately 10,000 over the next several years, and it was not until 1935, following the Great Depression and the beginning of the New Deal under President FDR that the UMW fully organized in southern West Virginia. This Union defeat had major implications for the UMWA as a whole. After World War I, as the coal industry began to collapse, Union mining was no longer financially sustainable. Because of the defeat in West Virginia, the Union was also undermined in Pennsylvania and Kentucky. By the end of 1925, Illinois was the only remaining unionized state that could compete with them in terms of soft coal production. Yeah, I'm talking Blair Mountain. In the long term, the battle raised awareness of the appalling conditions miners faced in the dangerous West Virginia coalfields. It also led to a change in union tactics and political battles to get the law on labor's side by confronting recalcitrant and abusive management. This eventually resulted in a much larger organized labor victory a few years later during the New Deal in 1933. That in turn led to the UMWA helping organize many better-known unions, such as the steelworkers during the mid-30s. In the final analysis, management's success was a Pyrrhic victory that helped lead to a much longer and stronger organized labor movement, and many other industries and labor union affiliations and umbrella organizations, such as the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations. Hey, thank you, Key. Thank you for the stars as well. Starting in the summer of 2006, a local hobby archaeologist, Kenneth King, led a team of professional archaeologists to further investigate the battlefield. King and the team's initial survey mapped 15 combat sites and discovered more than 1,000 artifacts. From rifle and shotgun shell casings to coins and batteries, and little sign of disturbance to the site, challenging earlier surveys conducted by Arch. In April 2008, Blair Mountain was chosen for the list of protected places on the National Register of Historic Places. Oh, you got something for me. Oh, yeah. The site was accepted and added to the NRHP list on March 30th, 2009, although clerical errors by the West Virginia State Historic Preservation Office failed to notarize all objections. In mid-2010, subsidiaries of two of the United States' largest coal producers, Arch Coal Inc. and Massey Energy Company, hold permits to blast and strip mine huge chunks of the upper slopes and ridge of Blair Mountain, removing much of the mountaintop, National Geographic reported. That's fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry. That's fucking, that is ridiculous. Like, that is just like the true end to all the stuff that happened and all the important history that is still in that soil. That is how that would end in this universe, in this world, is that it just ends up getting wiped from the collective conscious and also literally physically wiped from the world because a coal mine company just comes in and fucking strip mines that shit. Unreal. In October 2012, a federal district judge ruled that a coalition of preservation groups did not have standing to sue to protect the historic site. On August 26, 2014, the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit voted 2-1 to overturn the ruling and return the case. In April 2016, the order to remove the Blair Mountain battlefield from the National Register was overturned by a federal court, and the further decision to add the site back to the register was turned over to the keeper of the National Register. On June 27, 2018, the keeper's office decided that the 2009 decision to remove the site from its listings was erroneous and issued a statement confirming that as of that date, the site was again on the National Register. So that's cool. On that note, there's only 7 of you left in here. I guess you got bored. I'm going to grab a drink really quick. My throat was dry. Riveting. Okay. Oh yeah, that water. All right, so let's check out a thing. This thing. I have not watched this.
The popularity of unions in the United States has been on the
This is kinda
decline for
scary.
years. They are demonized in the news and by various politicians. Yet, they are also the only way that workers can gain enough leverage to successfully negotiate for better conditions. What if workers formed a union and the business owners and the government decided to kill them for it? It happened before, and it became the largest armed uprising since the Civil War. Today we are going to tell you about the Battle of Blair Mountain. Company Town. If you lived in Mingo County, West Virginia in 1920, then you were most likely poor, and the government was not going to help. Thankfully, there were jobs. This area of West Virginia was rich in coal, so it was usually possible to get work as a coal miner. But it was a very hazardous profession. Mining demanded long hours of grueling labor in some of the most dangerous conditions imaginable. There wasn't much time to enjoy life for those who worked in the mines. Most of the miners worked 12 hours a day and could only take Sundays off. The companies that owned the mines built entire towns near them. Housing would be provided to workers and their families. There were stores in the town that sold what the families needed. In some ways, it was convenient, but the price paid by workers was far too high. Mining companies didn't give tools to their workers for free. For example, the miners had to give part of their wages back to the company for the privilege of renting the tools. The mining company would also pay workers in what was known as scrip. It was a type of currency created by the company, and it could only be used at company stores. For someone who lived in company-owned housing and bought food with scrip, losing a job was devastating. It basically meant everything was lost. These unsavory conditions were nothing new, unfortunately. It was standard practice in the late 19th century for much of the United States. In 1890, the United Mine Workers established a union to fight for higher wages and better conditions. They had success in many places, but not in Mingo County. For 30 years, Mingo County and surrounding areas had succeeded in keeping the union out of the mines. In 1920, things began to change as over 3,000 miners joined the United Mine Workers Union. The Stone Mountain Coal Company employed nearly the entire town of Madawan. It did not plan to let the union come in without a fight. Madawan Massacre. Workers in the 1920s didn't have many protections. They could be fired for any reason at any time. And when it was time to remove miners and their families, the Stone Mountain Coal Company preferred to hire outside help. On May 19, 1920, the company hired the Feltz Detective Agency and tasked it with getting the union out of Madawan. A dozen detectives arrived in Madawan that day. Among them were Lee and Albert Feltz, who were the brothers of the agency's co-founder Thomas Feltz. Cable Testerman was the mayor of Madawan. Albert Feltz tried to bribe Cable to place machine guns on the roofs of buildings in town. Albert knew that before the detectives were done, violence was likely. Cable Testerman refused to help. The detectives proceeded to evict miners and their families that were associated with the union. In one case, they entered a home while the husband was not there. The detectives forced the woman and her children out of the house at gunpoint. Then they threw the family's belongings outside. It was also raining the entire time. The miners who saw this happen were furious. They sent word to the mayor hoping he might do something.
This B-roll is wild.
After finishing the evictions, the detectives headed to the train station intending to leave Madawan. Cable Testerman finally heard what the detectives had done to the woman and her children. He asked the town's police chief, Sid Hatfield, to deputize several miners and arrest the detectives. The group of men confronted the detectives. Sid told them they were under arrest. Albert Feltz replied that he had a warrant for Sid's arrest. Cable heard the exchange and asked to look at the warrant. After studying it, he said, "This is a bogus warrant." A gunfight erupted with those words. Sid Hatfield shot Albert Feltz.
It's not even how
In
Cable is
ensuing
spelled.
chaos,
It's wild.
Lee Feltz was also killed, as well as the mayor, Cable Testerman. In total, 7 of the detectives were killed. 3 men from the town died. It was a victory for the miners and their cause. Sid Hatfield was hailed as a hero. Armed resistance against the police and the coal companies became
Yeah, apparently he's just reading the wiki. I
throughout
realized
the
that like
Shootouts
a few
were
seconds
happening
ago.
sporadically all over the surrounding countryside.
This is just nice with some nice B-roll.
Sid Hatfield
Really
was
strange
part of the
B-roll.
reason why. Cable Testerman had owned a jewelry store. After his death, Sid converted it to a gun store that sold weapons to angry miners. The trials. Sid Hatfield found himself in the national spotlight after the gunfight ended. He would pose for reporters at every opportunity and made sure to do everything possible to increase his legendary status. He also had to stand trial for killing Albert Feltz. The trial began on January 26, 1921. Sid was acquitted, as well as all the deputized miners that were with him that day. Legally, at least, they faced no penalties for killing the 7 detectives. Although Sid Hatfield's public profile was on the rise, the Union was facing significant setbacks. The Stone Mountain Coal Company brought replacement workers into the mines that were not part of a union. In mid-May, the Union miners launched assaults on the mines that were using non-union
Thank you, Jesus.
labor. It was called the 3 Days Battle and ended when martial law was declared.
Thank you, Jesus.
Authorities arrested hundreds of miners. Many of them were incarcerated for the smallest and most petty offenses. By contrast, none of those who were against the Union ever went to jail. The response to this by the miners and Sid Hatfield was to sabotage mining operations. Sid was caught using dynamite to destroy part of a coal mine. He had to travel to nearby McDowell County on August 1, 1921 to stand trial for this crime. Sid traveled to the trial with his good friend Ed Chambers. They were
Ed
both
Chambers,
with their
not Bill
wives.
Chambers.
As they began to walk up the courthouse steps,
Yeah,
they
this is
saw
the
a
wild
group
shit.
of Baldwin Feltz agents at the top of the stairs. The detectives produced their weapons, opened fire, and killed Sid Hatfield instantly. Ed Chambers was also on the receiving end of several bullets. Instead of dying immediately, he rolled to the bottom of the steps. While his wife was screaming for the detectives to stop, one of them walked to the bottom of the stairs and shot Ed Chambers in the head. Word of the executions
Damn, these
spread.
visuals.
The miners knew the killers would walk free, and they didn't plan to let them get away with it. The
Oh
battle
yeah, this
begins.
happened, Roxy.
On August 7, the leaders of the United Mine Workers Union called for a rally at the West Virginia state capital of Charleston. The miners created a list of demands and provided them to the governor. The governor summarily rejected the demands. The miners became increasingly angry. They wanted to march to Mingo County, end martial law, and free the imprisoned workers. There were several obstacles in their path. First, they would have to cross through Logan County, and they would have to get past Blair Mountain. Logan County had a sheriff named Don Chapin, and he was fiercely anti-union. He created a small army that consisted of 3,000 state police, deputies, and citizen militia. This force created a series of trenches and machine gun nests around Blair Mountain. They planned to make sure none of the angry workers reached Mingo County. By August 28, there were at least 10,000 Union men near the border of Logan County. Small skirmishes with Chapin's forces started happening along the border. In order to make sure they could tell friend from foe, the miners tied red handkerchiefs around their necks. This
There you
became
go.
known as the Redneck Army. The first major battle took place on August 31st. The two groups exchanged gunfire and several were killed. The miners tried several times to rush positions occupied by Chaffin's forces. In each case, they were driven back by machine gun fire. On September 1, the miners made another attempt to break through into Logan County.
September 1.
They successfully assaulted a machine gun position and occupied it. But then the gun jammed and the other machine guns up the hill drove them back. Don Chaffin responded by hiring 3 private biplanes. He gave them tear gas and shrapnel bombs. The pilots dropped their bombs on the miners as they flew over their positions. Luckily for the workers, nobody was hurt by these explosive devices. The battle only ended because President Warren Harding ordered the military to intervene. Fighting continued until September 4, but most of the miners surrendered. Many of them were veterans of World War I and were unwilling to shoot at members of the United States military. Around 1,000 miners surrendered and laid down their weapons. They were arrested and 985 of them faced charges. These included murder, conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, and treason against the state of West Virginia. Some of the miners were found innocent by sympathetic juries. Most of them were imprisoned for years. Legacy. In the years following the Battle of Blair Mountain, it appeared that the coal companies had achieved a major victory. Membership in the Union dropped sharply. The coal industry also began to decline, which further affected the ability of unions to force improvements for workers. The victory would be short-lived. Unions learned from these mistakes, and instead of trying to use violence, they focused on using the law to their advantage. Furthermore, press coverage about the battle educated everyone about the horrible working conditions miners had to endure. Public sympathy for the plight of workers was difficult to ignore. In 1935, President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal legislation ensured workers had the right to organize into unions. The Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 set the maximum number of hours most employees could be forced to work and the minimum wage they could be paid. Companies in the United States were no longer able to legally use violence against workers. Now they had to negotiate, which in turn meant workers received better treatment. The location of the Battle of Blair Mountain has also become a site of archaeological interest. When the workers decided to surrender, many of them didn't want to have their weapons confiscated by the government, so they hid them in the woods around Blair Mountain. Over the years, thousands of weapons and other items have been recovered. Most are undisturbed and were found exactly where the miners left them in 1921. Nobody has ever been able to determine how many people died in the conflict. Some accounts place the number as low as 20 people dead. Others place the number.
I wonder what kind of straps they had in 1920. Let's look that up after this.
That during the conflict, over 1 million rounds were fired. The Battle of Blair Mountain raised public awareness about labor issues, and this did eventually lead to significant changes. In the modern world, and in the United States in particular, it is easy to forget just how violent life could be in the recent past. Only 100 years ago, large companies could abuse workers, steal from them, evict them, and maybe even kill them. There was almost no legal recourse for the poor.
You're banned, Roxy. You're banned for that.
When they stood up and tried to change this oppressive system, the government made sure to help the companies instead. Today, unions might still be despised by many, but it is not okay for the owners of these companies to use violence. So
yeah, that's basically, that video just did exactly what I did, which is read the Wikipedia. Let's see what kind of straps, let's see what they were toting in 1920. What were they toting? You know they had that motherfucking thing on them. Here we go. Cool. Yeah, they had the 1911. The Bolester Molina, that looks like a 1911. The Beretta OVP Modella 1918. That's some weird ass Italian shit. The Brandt MLE. I guess that's a mortar. Yeah, that's a mortar. Yo, thanks for the dono, Dad, the noob. Thank you. You think they had Garens? I don't think they had Garens yet. I don't think the M1 Garen was out yet. The Browning M2 was out. They had Brownings. Jesus. So they were ready to... So, dog, that means that they were ready to put Browning M2s on the roof. Like, they were ready to chop people down with Browning M2s while they were evicting them. That's how greasy, how dirty they were ready to get down. That's crazy. That's crazy. They had the Browning 1922. The Carl Gustav. That mean joint. I don't think we had that in America, though. The Russian joints. They had the Mauser, the broomstick rifle, I guess. Oh, they had that. The Ruskies had that. There's a Czech. My fault. Not no Russians. They had the DP-28 was out. Stalin's record player. They had that on deck. Thank you, Dad the Noob. I appreciate you. What else did they have? The Nambu Type 14. That obviously wasn't in Blair Mountain. They had more mortars. The Springfield 1922. So they had that on deck. They had the Pumpy. Where's Big Richie Lizzie at? They had the fucking Pumpy in Blair Mountain. The Stevens M. Let's look this up. They had the Pumpy. Damn, that joint looks like a Resident Evil. That looks like it's off Resident Evil, the Ithaca. Le Pumpy Classique. What else did they have? The Vickers. I don't think they would have had those here in America, though. Maybe. And they had the Walter PP. That's probably not in America either. I want a PP. That shit looks tight. That's the little James Bond joint. The PPK came out right after. Hell yeah. Yeah, probably mainly rifles. Let's see. What were the American... You can look up by conflict. Okay. It was a lot of stuff from World War One. So let's see what was up with World War One. Actually, let's go Wild West because that goes up to 1920. Damn, they got the... Look at this. This is the Hunt Showdown joint. What the fuck? They really had that? I mean, I'm not surprised, but damn, dude. The Derringer pocket pistol, tough. The Gatling boy, wild. Bumpkins on the Union side. I mean, the Unions, yeah, the Union side was probably straight up. I mean, it was rednecks, literally, but they used that against the Confederates. No, so cream of the slop. We're not talking about the Civil War. We're talking about the second largest armed conflict in American history. We're talking about the Battle of Blair Mountain. Have you heard of the Battle of Blair Mountain before? It's okay to say no, because a lot of people, pretty much everybody else in chat, also had never heard of it before. What's up, Vulcan? They ready to take out Scrapbeak. Hell yeah. You just got here? Okay, so basically to make a yeah, no shame. So to make a long story short, I've been streaming for like an hour and a half just talking about this pretty much. And the TLDR version basically is that in the late 1890s up until 1920s, a major source of the labor in the United States was these coal mines, right? Especially in the East Coast Appalachia. The coal mines were the sole source of income for a lot of these poor people, these poor folk on the East Coast and the mountains and such, the hillbillies, the rednecks, right? The term redneck actually comes from these members who wanted to unionize together wearing red bandanas around their neck. I don't know if you knew that, but essentially what happened was these coal mining companies who owned the coal mines also owned these towns. They were coal towns. So the company would not just own the mine that you were working in, it would own the house that you lived in, and it would own the store that you needed to buy supplies from, right? And it would even not even give you real money. It would give you this like company currency called scrip. And that's what you use to buy food and supplies for your home with. So if you got fired, you were fucked because you were also getting evicted and you would also not be able to go to any of the stores in the area, right? So if you try to unionize, because the workers were obviously being exploited, they were paid shit wages, they were subjected to absolutely ridiculously hazardous conditions, right? So naturally they would try to unionize. However, you would have to sign a yellow dog contract to work for these coal mines. If you don't know what a yellow dog contract is, it's basically a contract that says, if we find out that you're trying to unionize under any circumstance for any reason, you will be fired and subsequently evicted and banned from all the local stores and so on and so forth. Banned from all the mines in the area, blacklisted from all the mining companies, etc. So going a step beyond that, to further enforce the anti-union sentiment, these coal mining companies hired local police departments and private detective agencies and, sheriff deputies and so on and so forth to assassinate and harass and evict these unionizing miners. Yeah, Dad the Noob. They never taught us really about any of this. You work as, exactly. You work as an indentured servant. Thank you for the happy birthday, Vulcan. But yeah, one of the representatives of one of the companies straight said, like, you're a servant. Like, when asked about the firings and evictions, he said, naturally, if your servant says that he no longer wishes to work for you and no longer wishes to serve you, you would ask that he leave the servants' quarters, right? And that's how they viewed these poor workers, as servants, to serve them and bring them coal and money. Nah, I've never heard the song 16 Tons. Oh, the Smith and Wessons were out then. I forgot the volcanic pistol was out too, and the Webley. So that they would have had Webleys here. Wild. Yeah, these are the rifles they probably had. Just hella Winchesters for real. Hella like hunting, like lever action rifles. The Winchester carbine. But I guess these are all the straps that they had. The Colt Walker. Damn. Somebody's trying to shoot you with that. That's crazy. Took 5 years to reload? Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks for stopping by and wishing me a happy birthday, Vulcan. I appreciate you. Thank you, Cream of the Slop, because I also am still going to do Packwatch. There's another episode of Packwatch tonight. Might send me a pic. Ooh. All right. So let's do another episode of Packwatch. Let me scroll up to the links that Fade Runner was sending me earlier. Let me just, because he says Packwatch every time he sends. Let me just search the word Packwatch in chat. There we go. New Packwatch. New Packwatch.
We're so glad to have Dr. Tim Williamson with us. We're going to talk patient transfers. And I just want to jump right in and talk, Dr. Williamson, about our transfer center. And then let's just get straight to the numbers. What are those looking like? What have they looked like?
Yeah, good morning. And so we're very fortunate that we have, for the past several years, had our own transfer center in-house. We used to outsource that, and we do that completely in-house now. We historically have averaged about 800 or 900 transfer requests a month. Back in November of last year, we hit a record height of 1,200 requests. In July, we broke that. You can see a graphic here. We got 1,500 requests in July. What has changed in July, because of the volume, because of constraints on capacity, we ended up not being able to take about a third of those, so we weren't able to take about a third of those. But the past few weeks, it's been like nothing I've ever seen, and we actually are currently on pace to be over 2,000 requests for the month, which is just the highest number that we've ever seen. Along with that, because of the very large number of requests, we are currently only able to accept about 30% of those or slightly less. So we're having to decline maybe 70% of those.
Turning away one patient has got to weigh really heavy on your team.
So it weighs incredibly heavy, and that is a really great group of nurses there. We have typically 4 nurses during the week and a couple on the weekends who are interacting with the referring facilities. Then we have physician advisors. There's 3 of us. I'm one that helps with that. Do we have what that patient needs? Do we have the capacity to take care of that patient? Do they have the capacity to take care of the patient where they're at? And then try to match all of those things up. And it weighs really heavy when we have to say no, because we know that patient will likely remain at that facility because everyone in the metro area, everyone across Kansas and Missouri, and really across a good part of the U.S. is in the same place.
Well, it's really concerning when I hear you say, I've never seen anything like this before. Ooh. That's very scary. So how often are we evaluating this? I mean, I would imagine 24 hours in a day, you're doing this really up to the minute, right?
We're doing it in real time. We're doing it minute by minute. We have constant updates in terms of our capacity, but really every single call comes in. We match that with our capacity at the moment. And so it is a very fluid situation. What things look like at 8 in the morning may be different at 4 in the afternoon, which may be different.
DOD made a vaccine mandatory today? Right on.
It changes very rapidly.
Other hospitals having the same issue?
Yeah, absolutely. And so pretty much, to my knowledge, all of the hospitals in the metro area are constrained right now by capacity. I think every hospital's numbers would be higher if we were able to accept all of the requests that we get. And those requests are coming, and again, it's not limited to us, not only from Kansas and Missouri, but we have gotten requests from New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, South Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Georgia, and Iowa, and probably others. So we've gotten requests from all over the country.
So, and you haven't really seen that before?
No.
Lately, certainly.
We saw probably the closest we came to this was back in November and December when we had the surge back then, and thought that was record numbers back then, and it was back then, but this surpasses that. And I've been in healthcare about 30 years now, and I've not seen anything like this.
Wild. Probably not good. Oh, there's an anti-mask protester at a Kansas City Council meeting. What is happening? Our friends in healthcare have seen plenty to impale the heart in this COVID-19 pandemic, but nothing, that person listens to metal, but nothing more tragic than this. The sight of guilt-ridden young children who believe they've killed an unvaccinated parent by bringing the virus home. As they're dying, the kids are at the bedside apologizing. A hospital nurse tells me. You've actually seen that, I ask her. Multiple times, says the nurse. That's really fucked up. My Kansas City nurse friend, who can't use her name because she isn't authorized to speak to the media, which is wild as fuck to me, but anyway, occasionally shares this inconceivable, untold tragedy with dinner companions who obnoxiously insist on spouting their anti-vaccine views to her over burgers and beer. That is so wild. The nurse is literally telling you, yeah, I had to treat my like 30th COVID fucking patient this month who's probably going to fucking die. I watched his kids apologize to him because they think that they killed him. And your friends are just like, nah, that's not even real. He probably had cancer or something. Anyway, let me get a tall boy a bow. Like, it's inconceivable, but this is exactly how fucking stupid America is. Some of them are shamed into silence by what she tells them, but others cling stubbornly to their defiance even after hearing of parents who've left their children motherless or fatherless because of it, and left them with a lifetime of self-reproach for something that clearly wasn't their fault. Of course it isn't the kids' fault. They got sick and may have gotten their unvaccinated father or mother deathly ill. While dad or mom could have easily gotten vaccinated, the children could not have. But they still just feel terrible because they feel like they killed their parent, she says. COVID vaccine resistance goes on and on and on, even amid the Delta variant and amongst the caring hospital workers who can help. If not the dying patients, then their survivors. Astonishingly, many of those who have seen a loved one die still refuse to get vaccinated. We discuss it, we try to push it, our doctors try to push it, my friend says of efforts to vaccinate the survivors of COVID's dead and dying. It seems more often than not they don't want it. Good God, why not? The nurse says most complain they don't know what's in the shot, or they just don't know or trust it for the government. Or they just don't trust it or the government, I'm sorry. Or they say they've gone this long without getting it, so they should be fine. Unlike their loved one who succumbed to it. Wow. Thank you for the share, Ryan. Vaccine hesitancy, which feeds my friend's hospital with an unending stream of patients from some of the most intractably vaccine hesitant counties in America, shows up even in the most desperately ill. One man on the cusp of needing intubation told my friend's nursing colleague she was an idiot for being vaccinated. He asked her if she'd had her vaccine, and he was just like, "You're stupid," the nurse says. Just laid into her about how everybody's falling for what the government says and COVID's not real and you shouldn't get the vaccine, while he's laying in an ICU bed. Another man, not the only one, mind you, berated the hospital's emergency room staff for urging him to be admitted. He walked out, albeit tethered to oxygen, insisting angrily that COVID isn't real. And then we found out that he was at another hospital within 12 hours on a ventilator, the nurse says. He was the whole time just saying, like, COVID's not real, you guys are stupid. Wow. I could tell you that story about every day, that they're just yelling at us and they leave and then they come back or they go to another hospital because they're worse than when they left. And as they're being intubated, they still don't believe it. We're also, oh my God, dude. Imagine literally being put on a ventilator. Like, they're ready to hook you up to the doo-doo bag and the pee-pee bag. You know what I'm saying? They already got you laying face down. They're ready to put the blankets on you and shit. And you're like, nah, COVID's not real. That's your last thought. Imagine that. I want to make a meme of that. It's just like someone face down with a doo-doo bag and a pee-pee bag on them with the blankets on their back and a tube down their throat. And it's just a thought bubble, right? And the thought bubble is just the "Don't tread on me" flag, right? Would that be funny? Is that lit or is it sus? Is that dope or is it corny? Yeah, I feel that, Kuma. That's basically how I feel. Are they in denial because they can't face their own mortality, or they just can't admit they're being wrong? It's probably a little column A, a little column B. Like, I mean, I would be embarrassed if I was like, COVID's not real, and I'm literally fucking dripping with sweat and gasping for air after trying to fucking tie my shoe. In June, you were intubated with a doo-doo bag and a pee-pee bag? Damn. I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, not for COVID, but still wasn't fun? Yeah, I can imagine. It doesn't sound fun. I can't believe y'all are letting me get away with calling a colostomy bag and a catheter a doo-doo bag and a pee-pee bag. That's pretty wild. I'm wild for that, but we're going to keep it going. Oh, man. That's wild. If a breathing tube down your throat won't convince you COVID-19 is real, what will? That's what you called it at the time? Yeah. Poo-poo pee-pee. Yeah. You had COVID when the pandemic started and had to go to a hospital to visit your father for other reasons and happened to be near people that got it in Oregon. That sucks. I was literally shitting out intestinal lining. It was the scariest thing I've ever been through. Jesus Christ, Clean the Slot. I'm glad you made it through that. I'm the only one in my family who didn't get it. My mom got it. She got it. She didn't get it really bad. She had kind of a mild case. She said it felt like a truck hit her and she got to keep her sense of taste and smell, but she was laid up for a while. I had to take care of her. And my dad got it, but he didn't tell anyone. So we didn't know, but I guess he had a pretty decently mild case too, but they both got it at like, my dad got it probably in like March or April of last year. He got it really early in the pandemic. My mom got it in January of this year. She tested positive the day after January 6th, actually. Because I remember that day, she said she felt kind of rough, and I told her she should get a COVID test. So she did, and then the next day it came back positive. You almost died from an infection, Roxy. Sheesh. You have a coworker who told you they have a relative who saw their wife die of COVID, and while in the room, he said she was faking it. Jesus Christ. That's fucking nuts. You had a tube in your neck? Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. That's wild. That's fucking wild. Let's see. What's this?
I have O negative blood type. Hey guys, I have O negative blood type, and I did not get the vaccine. I was against the vaccine. I was scared of the vaccine. I didn't think that if I even got COVID, if it was going to infect me in a negative way, because I seem to have thought that my blood type was going to be a factor and I was going to be okay. Anyway, it turned out that my blood type has nothing to do with it. And right now, the nurse said that in June they only had two COVID patients in here in 1 week, and now they have 102. Anyway,
damn.
So what is my suggestion? Hold on. My suggestion is either use your masks and sanitizer still, or get the vaccine. I wish I got the vaccine. I wish I wasn't anti-vaccine. Do we want? Just be safe.
Damn. That's wild. That's so wild. And in a non-COVID related Packwatch. O negative, rest in peace. Type O negative. Do what you want isn't the best advice for anti-vaxxers? Yeah, I mean, it's really not. I'm glad she said that she wished she would have got the vaccine, but you should definitely be telling people that they should get vaccinated. I'll never understand anti-vaxxers either. It's like, I don't know, dude. They live in a completely different like reality, like a completely different universe. That's the only thing I can fathom. They're not on the same mental wavelength that we are. They're on a different frequency. You know what I mean? To the point where you're literally getting intubated. You're literally on the pee-pee bag and a doo-doo bag. And you're literally getting the fucking tube down your throat. And you're like, nah, COVID's not real. You literally watch your fucking wife die of COVID in front of you. And you're like, nah, COVID's not real. She's faking it. Like, I genuinely don't understand it either. This shit is nuts. Roosevelt is rolling over in his grave wheelchair right now. Oh my god. Anyway, let's check out this new episode of Packwatch. We got Dylan Spoof. We're ready to roll up that fucking Dylan Spoof pack. Get ready. Y'all ready to smoke on that Dylan roof? Oh my god, I'm gonna be high as fuck. You don't understand. I'm gonna be fucking blaze off that Dylan roof pack. A federal appeals court upheld Dylan Roof's 2015 conviction and death sentence for the racist killings of 9 members of a black church. The Mushroom Head. And let me also start off by saying I am against the death penalty. 1000%. I believe that the death penalty should be abolished. I am an abolitionist, period. I believe prisons should be abolished. I believe the police should be defunded and abolished. I believe that the death penalty obviously should be abolished. With that said, I cannot wait to smoke on this Dylan Roof pack because I know it's going to be some fire. The Lloyd Christmas shape up. He's got that fucking Johnny Sins shape up. You know what I'm saying? He's got the Steve Dean shape up. Smoking that bowl cut bowl. Yeah, we're ready to smoke some fucking fat bowls of Dylan Roof pack. His crimes qualify him for the harshest penalty that a just society can impose, the court ruling says. Roof attempted to appeal the death sentence in May. The court's decision goes on to say that when Roof was arrested, he frankly confessed with barely a hint of remorse. Wild. In 2017, Roof became the first person in the U.S. sentenced to death for a federal hate crime. Authorities have said Roof opened fire during the closing prayer of a Bible study at the church, raining down dozens of bullets on those assembled. He was 21 at the time. Packwatch. I can't wait to smoke on that Dylan Roof pack. That's going to get me high as fuck. Let's see what this is all about. Ooh, let's watch this.
It's hard to watch the pandemic drag on as Americans refuse the vaccine in the name of freedom.
Pure racism. Just pure racism. Dylan Roof, he was just a racist piece of shit, and I am just now realizing that I don't have the video on screen anyway, so. But yeah, yeah, he murdered a bunch of people in the black church. He specifically stated before he started shooting people, he was like, you guys are raping our women, you're committing crimes, blah, 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 blah. All the fucking racist shit that people say about black people. He was like, yeah, you guys are doing all this shit, and I'm here to put a stop to it. And he became the Joker. His mom took his Nintendo Switch away, and he had no choice at that point except to become the Joker. Before we watch this next video, though, I'm going to get another drink. I'm thirsty again. I'll be right back in like 30 seconds. All right. He was also on his way to kill Euronymous. Yeah. All right, so let's watch this. This is more Packwatch. Let's watch this.
It's hard to watch the pandemic drag on as Americans refuse the vaccine in the name of freedom.
You're talking about an unproven, untested vaccine that doesn't even seem to really protect people because people who have gotten the vaccine are getting sick.
I went to one of the places.
I think we watched this already, actually, but we can watch it again.
I don't want a poison forced into me.
I'm tired of y'all trying to control us.
One of the best things we have is our own God-given natural antibodies.
It also has one of the worst COVID case rates in the
Yeah,
country.
we definitely watched this already.
The Ozarks.
I don't take the flu shot. I don't take the pneumonia shot. I don't take any of them.
I wanted to find out why residents here aren't getting vaccinated.
You're trying to mask these kids up.
He watches Thulian perspective.
And what, if anything, could convince them otherwise?
Hey, Mr. Green. It's Dr. Martin here. How are you? I heard you had a kind of a rough night last night.
Christopher Green is 53 years old and fighting for his life. Like 90% of the patients in this packed hospital, he's unvaccinated.
He's just walking a very thin, tight rope right now, and to be honest, I don't expect him to get out of this without being on a ventilator, and if he has to be on a ventilator, I don't expect him to survive.
I immediately asked Christopher, why hadn't he gotten the vaccine?
I'm more of a libertarian, and I don't like being told
He's a libertarian.
what I have to do. I'm still not completely 100% sold on the inoculation.
It was eerie to hear Christopher insist on his individual freedoms, even as he struggled to breathe.
Do you think other people should get it? I mean, I think that's everybody's individual right or choice to do what they want to. So I'm not one to dictate or make somebody feel guilty because they don't.
Christopher represents a genuine challenge. Do the American values of individual choice have to take priority over public health?
By the time they're here, what can you do? You know, and it's when somebody's in a room really, really sick and can't breathe and suffering, I mean, it's just not a good time for a lecture.
But the result in a place like Mountain Home is a 36% vaccination rate, and people are dying.
Let everybody live their own life.
I heard this over and over. Freedom, choice.
Don't do it because somebody's pressuring you to do it.
Everyone has the right to choose.
Wild.
Almost everyone I met in Mountain Home told me they knew someone who died from COVID. Most people are undoubtedly concerned about the pandemic here. It didn't feel to me like a QAnon convention. Misinformation certainly exists here, but a powerful force behind the hesitancy is this fundamental idea of personal freedom. But in a community where individual rights are taking precedence over everything else, you get endless individual reasons not to get vaccinated, like believing the vaccine doesn't work.
I have two parents in their 70s. Both had the vaccine and both got COVID.
A preference for hearsay.
He had heard that the people that were spreading the virus were people that had already had the vaccine and that they were carriers.
Straight up fear.
Oh, just people having reactions.
Even among those who overcame their hesitancy, there's a lack of urgency.
I don't really have any reasons to be out in circulation with the rest of the public. I just enjoy my dogs and work out on the farm and raise my koi fish.
With all these reasons not to get vaccinated,
raise my koi fish.
It makes it hard for those who actually do want it.
I have a parent who does not necessarily support vaccinations. It was hard because she asked me where I was going and I was like, oh, I'm going to get vaccinated, and she was not very happy with that.
What struck me was that Mary Beth had the courage to go against the grain.
People should be more concerned about the well-being of those around them, because I feel like not enough people are thinking about other people when they make the decision not to get the vaccine.
There's an irony in someone rebelling against a culture of individualism for the good of their community. But voices like Mary Beth's are drowned out by leaders who are contradicting public health officials.
No, the state is not going to be requiring and mandating vaccinations.
And I don't believe anyone should be forced to take the vaccine. It should be your personal choice.
These vaccines are always voluntary and never forced.
We don't have to accept the mandates, lockdowns, and harmful
Yeah, exactly, Mike. They're talking to these people while they're in
either have
the
a
ER.
free society or we can have a biomedical security state.
There's no better place to see the impact of this political rhetoric than in the hospital. Only about 50% of the staff are vaccinated. None of the unvaccinated staffers were willing to talk.
That's the wildest part to me.
Just a lot of people that you cannot convince to get vaccinated. Patients, employees, it's very frustrating. It's sad.
That's the wildest part to me.
It's disappointing.
Just a few months ago, the staff was planning
You're
to
literally
celebrate
treating
the
people who are
end of
dying of COVID and you won't get vaccinated.
But instead of barbecuing, they're now battling another surge.
It's exhausting. We're all exhausted. We don't have staff. We don't have beds.
One obvious way out is to mandate the vaccine. But in April, the governor signed a law banning government mask mandates and vaccine passports. That shifts the responsibility mostly to private entities. Vaccine requirements as part of employment, attending school, or participating in sports are reluctantly motivating some to overcome their hesitancy. It seems to me that the only other thing that actually sways people here is being in the hospital.
And I really am upset at myself because I did not get vaccinated. I've never hurt like I've hurt. It's made a believer out of me.
This is what freedom looks like in America today. It's always been complicated. But political leaders should remember that this country was also founded on the idea that government should protect us. After all, in a pandemic, one person's freedom can be another person's death.
Probably should have had a little healthier fear that it need to be taken more seriously. And because I mean, I don't know how close I am to being a lot worse. I really don't know.
Spoiler alert, he dies.
Christopher Green died 9 days after this interview. He was 53 years old.
They don't care about what's actually in the Bible. They don't care about none of that. They don't care about the Bible.
This video is supported by Brilliant.
Whoops, sorry. You guys want to... I don't know if this is going to be TOS. This is probably going to be TOS. I'm not going to watch this. There's a Vice News video about 3D printed Glocks, though. Interesting. Analyzing Evil put out a video about Frank Booth. That's cool. Yeah. The quotes. The very important quotes. All right, so I think that's going to do it for me for tonight. I think that's going to be it for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for watching and supporting me and stuff. My birthday is officially over. It is officially not my birthday anymore. Shout out to Dad the Noob for the dono. Shout out to Joe for the dono. Shout out to DC Metal Chris for the dono. Shout out to Key Brown for the stars. You guys are the best. My birthday is forever. Every day is my birthday. We're going to party like it's my birthday every day. Thank you, Kay the Milkshake. But yeah, that's it. Come hang out. We're going to hang out Friday. I'm going to see Candyman Saturday night for my birthday. When you show up, it's my birthday. Fair enough. But all right, y'all. Thanks. Come check me out Friday, 10 p.m. Thank you, DC Metal Chris. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming through and chilling and supporting me as always. Um, I gotta talk about where this channel is gonna go. Just don't say his name 5 times. Yeah, I gotta do that for sure. But I'm thinking about, like, as far as content, how this channel is gonna go. Hope I get some birthday tale. Yeah, me too. um. So I don't know, man. What I want to inspire people to do with this channel. Roxy's trying her damnedest tonight to get fucking banned. But anyway, the main thing I want to try to inspire people to do is, like, I consider myself to do even less than the bare minimum when it comes to political engagement. Like, to call yourself an activist, I feel like there's, like, you have to be active. Like, you have to participate in an organization, whether it's being an organizer or contributing to an organization. Like, essentially, like, you don't have to go to jail, but if you've gone to jail doing what you've done, I consider you an activist. And I don't really consider myself an activist on this platform, but I would like to inspire others to get organized in their communities, in their places of work, like cemetery, daddy cemetery, yeah. But that's basically where I'm trying to go with this whole thing. So I'm thinking I might change up my situation on Instagram a little bit. My Instagram content's probably going to be different. It's probably going to actually be good in the future. Same with my TikTok content. What I'm thinking I'm going to do is focus, like, my Saturdays. I will, because, you know, sometimes I do kind of earlier stream where I just game. And I'm thinking I'm going to spend Saturdays instead clipping some of my previous content for YouTube videos, like 5-minute videos, 10 minutes videos, that sort of thing, for people who just, like, even 30 minutes, like a 30-minute news stream is, like, too much. You know what I mean? People that just want to understand people's attention spans, or not even their attention spans, but just their free time is very limited these days. So like, as much as I enjoy people like you know, like ContraPoints and Philosophy Tube and stuff, and the way that they produce their content, I haven't actually watched any of their stuff in so long. Not because I have changed ideologically or anything like that, but just, like, I just haven't had the time. I don't have the time anymore to watch a fucking, like, 45-minute long YouTube video. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's all. That's just kind of, I have to state that, and, you know, my purpose in doing all of this, to remind myself why I keep doing it, beyond getting to hang out with you guys and chill with you guys, because you guys are cool. It's always amazing to me that you guys still support me in this shit show this long, while I'm still in my infant stages of just really feeling this whole platform out, getting to know, like, feeling out the algorithm and that sort of stuff, and just really setting up my aesthetic and my style, you know what I mean? Discovering my style. So with that said, good night, everyone. Thanks for the birthday wishes. Thanks for the support and love. Everyone be safe, stay blessed, and sent me a pic. Oh boy. But I'll see y'all Friday. Thanks for coming through. And yeah, let me see who we're gonna raid tonight. Cause I got a few people in here. I can raid someone. I forgot to log in Twitch. We sending pics.
still gotta do coloring and shading, and that's all gonna take time.
Oh my goodness, mute.
Houses, oh, very fun.
I can't raid Riverboat Jack. Okay, the milkshake is live. Weird. I'm gonna raid K the milkshake. Yeah, likewise, Kuma. I can't wait to see how your channel ends up looking. But yeah, yo, I'm gonna raid K the milkshake. See you guys in there. Make sure to say what's up to her, and I'll catch you guys on Friday. See ya. No, damn it, Roxy.